You can count the number of delegates she won in the 2020 primaries on one hand, as long as that hand has no fingers.
What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about, Willis? What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about, Willis?
I grew up understanding the children of the community are the children of the community.
That's hilarious.
You better thank a union member. For the 5-day work week, you better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
Well, first of all, I appreciate your fake accent. You gotta have a hook nowadays, and that's a good one. You practiced.
So the United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. And it is an alliance that is strong and enduring.
Excuse me? Excuse me? Excuse me?
North Korea has reportedly fired another 2 ballistic missiles off its east coast as Japan's defence minister warned repeated provocation using missiles was unacceptable. The latest launch comes hours after US Vice President Kamala Harris departed South Korea, the last stop on her 4-day Asian tour.
Today, for the first time, the U.S. government confirmed that North Korean forces are in Russia to help fight Ukraine. The U.S. said 3,000 troops have traveled so far, what it called a serious escalation. It also reveals North Korea is expanding its alliance with Russia to take on the U.S. and its allies.
Now I'm really angry. This is fucking war.
So you're now no longer are you necessarily keeping those private files in some file cabinet that's locked in the basement of the house. It's on your laptop, and it's then therefore up here in this cloud that exists above us, right?
True international effort to pressure.
That's fucked up, man.
Senator, day one, January 20th, 2021, you are in the Oval Office. You are the sitting president. What do you do about the situation at the border?
Well, immediately end this inhumane policy that is about separating children from their families and holding children in cages. You know, frankly, Stephanie, it's a human rights abuse that is being committed by the United States government. I decided I was going to start prosecuting parents for truancy. A friend of mine actually called me and he said, Kamala, my wife got the letter. She freaked out. She brought all the kids into the living room, held up the letter, said, if you don't go to school, Kamala's going to put you and me in jail.
Basically, she wanted to threaten parents with jail if their kids then sent to school, which obviously is a policy that is going to disproportionately affect minority communities, the same minority communities that she is, I think, trying to now appeal to and present herself as something of a champion.
As California's Attorney General, Harris promoted enforcement of a law that allowed prosecutors to seek jail time for parents of truant kids.
If you fail to take responsibility for your kids, we are going to make sure that you face the full force and consequences of the law.
I thought that was crazy. I was like, how can you lock parents up?
I opened the door and I see at least 7 or 8 cops, full gear, like wanted to arrest me. As a matter of fact, they did.
That was May 2011. The Hadidis woke to law enforcement at their door. And you're handcuffed this whole time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the criminal. I have my pajamas on. Like those paper-thin pajamas. And that's what I went to jail in.
Their son, Connor, was in middle school then.
I used to be allergic to a lot of things.
You missed 12 days of school.
Yeah, but not consecutively.
It's not like the kids don't like school. They do. But they couldn't breathe.
Arrested under the new state truancy law, the Hadidis, who had no prior criminal history, were spotlighted in local news outlets. The electronic trail still haunts them to this day.
I think it's very important, as you have heard from so many incredible leaders, for us at every moment in time, and certainly this one, to see the moment in time in which we exist and are present. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
Flashback. Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020.
Fact check bottom line, Abby, is that she did not actually make clear at a 2020 debate that she had changed her previous support for a fracking ban. So listen to what she actually said in that 2020 debate.
Joe Biden will not end fracking. He has been very clear about that. I will repeat, and the American people know, that Joe Biden will not ban fracking.
I certainly did not hear anywhere in there Kamala Harris saying that she personally had abandoned her previously expressed 2019 view.
Liar, liar.
You need to get to go and need to be able to get where you need to go to do the work and get home.
That's cute. I remember when I had my first beer.
You're considered the most liberal United States senator.
Somebody said that, and it actually was Mike Pence on the debate stage. But
Yeah. Well, actually, the nonpartisan GovTrack has rated you as the most liberal senator.
Who saw what could be unburdened by what had been.
Is that it? No, there's more.
Oh, hell no!
Support a mandatory buyback program.
I'm a gun owner. Tim Walz is a gun.
know that!
If
And I thought
somebody
that was
breaks in
powerful.
my house, they're getting shot.
Yes, yes. I hear that. I hear that.
Probably should not have said that.
Yeah.
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
One is that there was a big crime lab scandal whereby there was a lab technician who was using the drugs rather than testing them. And as a result, many, many convictions became tainted. And it turned out that her office had known for months, top attorneys had, and had not disclosed that information to the defense. And when a judge found out, she became quite incensed and wrote an opinion castigating Harris for allowing this to happen. Harris's reaction to that was to try to get the judge disqualified by saying that she had a conflict of interest because her husband was a defense lawyer. That failed, and 600 cases were thrown out. The second piece of her tenure that I think is important that not a lot of people know about is a case involving a man named Jamal Truelove. That case was tried by Linda Allen, who was one of Harris's deputies. And the case against Truelove turned against a single eyewitness, turned on one eyewitness. It was a one eyewitness identification case. He was convicted and sentenced to 50 years to life. And the Court of Appeals threw out that conviction, castigating what Allen had done as gross and egregious prosecutorial misconduct. They said that her closing argument was a yarn made out of whole cloth. Recently, Truelove sued the city of California, the city of San Francisco, and won a $13.1 million judgment.
I never talked to no detective, no police officer, no DA, nobody.
Just arrested and then charged.
Arrested and charged, that's it.
Was the first time you saw Kamala Harris in person the day that the verdict was issued?
She showed up at the two most pivotal times in this first trial, and me being convicted and me being sentenced. She wanted to be present for a celebration of a conviction. The reactions I get when I tell people my story is, they say it's the worst nightmare. You know, it's the closest thing to dying. It felt to me that she was well aware about my case, and she was there to set her presence, almost take pride in getting a conviction.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context.
This administration has decided to vilify them and to trade on them for the sake of this president's medieval vanity project called a wall. Let me be very clear, I'm not going to vote for a wall under any circumstances, and I do support border security, and if we want to talk about that, let's do that. This issue is about a vanity project for this president. Right. And it is a problem of his own making. Right. And listen, when I travel this country, folks have plenty enough problems that they need their president to focus on instead of a wall.
Under Donald Trump, you criticized the wall more than 50 times. You called it stupid, useless, and a medieval vanity project. Is a border wall stupid? But you're agreeing to a bill that would earmark $650 million to continue building that wall.
I pledge that I am going to bring forward that bipartisan bill to further strengthen and secure our border. Yes, I am. And I'm going to work across the aisle to pass a comprehensive bill that deals with a broken immigration system. I think Jackson's question, part of it was to acknowledge that America has always had migration, but there needs to be a legal process for it. People have to earn it. And that's the point that I think is the most important point that can be made, which is we need a president who is grounded in common sense and practical outcomes. Like, let's just fix this thing. Let's just fix it.
To fix the problem, you're doing this compromise bill. It does call for $650 million that was earmarked under Trump to actually still go to build a wall.
I'm not afraid of good ideas where they occur.
So you don't think it's stupid anymore?
I just talked about that wall, right? We just talked about it. He didn't actually do much of anything.
But you do want to build some wall.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
I'm here in Guatemala today. At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe.
Kamala Harris was never the border czar. She was never asked to address the situation at the border.
Taking on the border crisis today, putting Vice President Kamala Harris in charge.
Federal facilities being overwhelmed by the number of unaccompanied minors arriving each and every day. Our DC Bureau Chief Ben Kennedy joins us live with more. Ben.
Well, Louis Nicole, this is a key assignment for Vice President Harris. It's a bit of an uphill battle. She admits it'll not be easy, but she says it is so important.
But the Vice President agreed
to be the point person on immigration.
Madam Vice President, thank you. I gave you a tough job.
There's no question that this is a challenging situation.
You had one job.
Who doesn't love a yellow school bus, right? Can you raise your hand if you love a yellow school bus, right? Just, there's something about and most of us, many of us went to school on the yellow school bus.
What the fuck? How do you reconcile your contradictory past with what you claim to support today?
I've been consistent my whole career.
Please, continue.
And welcome back. I'm Golston Dart, in tonight for Kelly DeMarco.
And I'm Edie Lambert. A top candidate for Attorney General is calling today for California to legalize pot, not just medical marijuana, but for recreational use as well.
It has become a big issue in the race for California's top cop, and KCRA 3's Mike Lurie joins us now with more for Commitment 2014.
Well, Golston, a growing number of Americans favor marijuana legalization. 2 states, in fact, Colorado and Washington, already allow pot sales, which are heavily taxed and regulated. But is California ready to follow suit?
My position is it needs to be legalized.
Ron Gold, the Republican candidate for Attorney General, wants to tax and regulate the use of marijuana for recreational purposes.
Colorado is already beginning to prove to everybody that there is sufficient taxable base.
Gold wants to use the millions of dollars projected from marijuana sales for drug and alcohol counseling and for education.
In the face of grave danger.
We asked California's current top cop, Kamala Harris, for her position on this controversial issue. Your opponent, Ron Gold, has said that he is for the legalization of marijuana recreationally. Your thoughts on that?
That he's entitled to his opinion.
She declined to support a bill in 2016 that would have made marijuana legal, and she actively opposed the same bill that came up in 2010 while she was still DA.
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting Black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. That would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Have you ever smoked?
I have.
Okay. Like
and I inhale. I did inhale. It was a long time ago. But yes.
I know you have to go. They say you have to go.
I just broke loose.
I mean, was it in college? See, I like stuff like that. That's a real honest answer. Was it a blunt or joint?
It was a joint.
Hey.
Yeah.
You remember the high?
I do.
So if it was legalized all throughout the country and medicinal, would you do it?
Listen, I think that it gives a lot of people joy, and we need more joy.
And talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs. The path to the White House runs right through this state.
We spent $1 billion and elected Donald Trump. That's not a blame game. That's called accountability. And the people at the top of the campaign, the top of the party, have a lot of people pissed off at him because there were people who had suggestions. There were people who were saying, why are we doing this? Why? It was like, hey, we've got it. We've got this special magical computer formulation. We've tested every ad. Shut up and sit down and go back to work. And so people go, okay, well, yeah, I guess you're right. And then we got clobbered, clocked, knocked down, beat up, drugged down. And so people are mad, and they should be mad. And the people at the top are going to have to listen. There is a grassroots rebellion happening in this party, and it's coming to knock on the door of the people who are in charge of the party. That's not blame game. That's accountability.
Accountability. I mean, and I know you're for $1 billion.
$1 billion.
And I believe they technically, blew a few $100 million of that in recent weeks, Andrew Yang, and now ended up technically maybe in debt a little bit.
You worked for Kamala Harris.
I didn't. I'm a donor.
You're a donor.
Technically, I mean, I'm not on anyone's payroll. I'm not beholden to anyone. That's why I'm here telling the truth. I'm not here to gaslight anybody. This is just the truth.
What is the truth?
The truth is this is just an epic disaster. This is a $1 billion disaster. Actually, it was $1,018 million, I think, right? There were $20 million or $18 million in debt.
Right.
It's incredible. And I raised millions of that. I have friends that I have to be accountable to and to explain what happened because I told them it was a margin of error race. I was promised, Jen O'Malley Dillon promised all of us that Harris would win. She even put videos out saying that Harris would win. I believed her. My donors believed her. And so they wrote massive checks. I feel like a lot of us were misled. And even on the night of election night, I looked somebody in the eye and I said, are we going to do this? Are we going to pull it off? She told me yes. And I asked somebody else, how are you feeling? He's like, we're going to win Iowa. And I was like, what?
The Democratic National Committee struggling to regroup in the wake of overwhelming election losses. The party laying off long-term permanent staffers now with just 1 day's notice and no severance pay. DNC National Finance Committee member Lindy Lee. Lindy, welcome back, and thanks so much for being here. I'm guessing that these layoffs, no severance pay, no warning really is not a surprise to you based on conversations you and I have had.
Marnie, thank you so much for having me. I'm not entirely surprised, but that doesn't mean that I'm not hurt on behalf of many of whom are my friends who expected and who were promised that they would be paid through the end of the year. And senior staff, a lot of senior staff were summarily fired or told that they wouldn't be receiving any pay last week. And now we see basically massive layoffs. So people who were told that their jobs would be permanent regardless of the outcome of the campaign. They were fully expecting to, build their lives in DC and to grow their families. There are some who are expecting young kids or some who are single parents. So this is a very, very heartbreaking situation. I even got a message from someone saying, they reached out to me because they knew that I was speaking out about this. They said that they can't even afford Thanksgiving now. I've never gotten a message like that before. So this is just startling and kind of undermines the principles and values that our party says that it espouses.
The defense rests.
You've disconnected from the hive mind. Explain.